appears that there was a takeover party of an old, I hesitate to say abandoned, but an old Knights of Columbus hall that was no longer in use. And it had been taken over for an illegal party. Basically, this location was sat vacant, and these folks just took it over without permission of effective consent of the owners, and staged a party there where we know now that there was a bunch of young people, most likely drinking, using drugs, certainly armed. And during the course of that party, Arriola was there with several of his friends when it appears that there was some sort of a disturbance. Arriola was ejected from the club, from the party, and he and his friends got into a vehicle that fled the scene, but not before Arriola, it appears. When they left the location, they actually drove up onto Old Pearsall Road in the 8200 block, and it appears that at some point, Arriola was able to either reach out of the vehicle or get out of the vehicle and shoot down on the building. So for setup purposes, the roadway, the way it sits, the building actually sits down below the level of the road. So if you're on the roadway shooting at the building, you're actually shooting down toward it. And so the trajectory of the bullets was certainly consistent with that. But the young lady that lost her life in this horrible case was 21-year-old Desiree Rivera. I believe we've got a picture of her. Desiree Rivera, 21 years of age. She was shot in the head and died almost instantly there on scene. There was also a 29-year-old man that was shot in the lower extremities. Thankfully, he survived, but obviously has a road to recovery ahead of him. But in this instance, it took us quite a bit of time. Our homicide investigators handling this did an outstanding job, running down. We estimated several dozen warrants on social media sites, cell phones, physically going to residences and executing search warrants. But after all these months of work, it paid off. And here recently, we were able to put out a warrant for Jonathan Arriola for those 2 charges. Now, Arriola was not here in town. He was ultimately found down in Brownsville, working on a construction crew of some sort. That's why you see him wearing the yellow vest in the picture. But he was arrested there really without incident. Once we were able to get him down there in Brownsville with the help of the Marshals Task Force down there, they were able to track him down pretty quickly, and we were able to get him back earlier today. During questioning, of course, he didn't really care to say much to us, but at this point, we've got what we need in this case. And again, no small feat, due in large part to a lot of work by our homicide investigators and other agencies that helped us out with it as well. Esta tarde nosotros arrestamos Jonathan Arriola, 20 años de edad, por homicidio de una mujer que se llama Desiree Rivera, 21 años de edad. Se aparenta que, o sabemos que el día 9 de marzo nosotros recibimos una llamada aproximadamente a las 4, casi a las 4 de la mañana en 8200 Old Pearsall Road por un reporte de un homicidio. Cuando nosotros llegamos nos encontramos con el cuerpo de la señorita Desiree Rivera. Desafortunadamente ella había fallecido a causa de un balazo a la cabeza. También un joven de 29 años de edad. Él también sufrió herida a su pierna, pero afortunadamente él sobrevivió esa herida. Nosotros, después de varios meses de andar investigando este caso, nuestra unidad de homicidio que hicieron un buen trabajo en lograr sacar la información de la persona responsable por el tiroteo. Y este día, ayer arrestamos a Arriola en Brownsville, Texas. Sin incidente. Nosotros lo trajimos para aquí, para el condado de Bexar este día y pues no logramos hablar con él, sino que pues él más bien no quiso hablar con nosotros, pero ya tenemos la información que nosotros tenemos por estos 2 casos. Any questions?
Do you know how many social media videos contributed to finding him?
I couldn't tell you how many we put out or how many people sent in. I wouldn't have that information to give you at this point, but what I can tell you is there was quite a bit or quite a few tips that came in from the public on this. Obviously we thank all of the people that were brave enough to put things forward and let us know what happened. Obviously some information came forward. Look, a little bit of luck, but just a whole lot of really good police work went into this for sure.
Do you know how many shots he fired at the home?
It was probably less than a dozen, I believe. And I believe that it was actually a full auto weapon. It was a pistol that was converted by the use of a switch that, as you know, is a weapon, is a piece of equipment that can be put on a gun aftermarket and turns a semi-automatic handgun into a machine gun. We actually, as part of this case, actually do have a video we believe that occurred at the time of the shooting. It captures audio, and what you can hear is absolutely a machine gun being fired off. And so, unfortunately, the occupants of that building were basically sitting ducks as gunfire came raining in on it from up above. Sí, nosotros sabemos que este sospechoso sí tiró varios balazos hacia el edificio. Él usó una arma que tenía puesta un switch que convierte armas semiautomáticas a ser ametralladoras. Y nosotros, en este caso, sí nos juntamos con un video que el video por la calidad no está bien, pero sí podemos escuchar en el video varios balazos y sí parece que está usando una ametralladora. Es lo que mató a esta niña.
Can you spell his first, last name, and age?
Sure. First name is Jonathan, Jonathan. Arriola is Arriola, 20 years of age.
¿Qué hacía Jonathan en New Brunswick?
¿En New Braunfels? En Brownsville. No, estaba en Brownsville, estaba trabajando en construcción cerca de la SpaceX, donde está SpaceX, cerca de ahí.
Do you believe there were other people involved in this situation?
Great question. We do believe there were others involved. Well, we know there were others involved. We know there were other occupants in that car. And I can tell you, we are certainly not ruling out that there may be other arrests in connection with this case. So anybody that may be in this case that at this point has the ability to come in and be treated as a witness, you know, if we have to come look for them and come find them and drag the information out of them, then certainly that'll make their life a little bit more difficult. So, but we are not ruling out other arrests in this case.
Sheriff, you mentioned that last time some people had filmed this young lady as she was dying. Did you ever get that evidence of people watching her die?
We did. And obviously I can't go too much into detail on the evidence that we have in the case, but I can tell you that we did find evidence. And it appears, quite frankly, that on text exchanges, this suspect at one point actually physically did see pictures or video of what he had done to this young lady. Somebody callously enough at the time of her death was videotaping her as she lay dying, or immediately in the aftermath of her being dead. And we're sending that back and forth to each other. So again, there is evidence that he saw his handiwork.
How many people were at that rave? Do you know?
It was probably 100 or so at least that were there. And of course, you know, with regard to these after hours takeover parties, you know, we've seen cases where it happens in a house, new construction homes, and it is one of the things that we've seen, or it's a building. That's one of the things that complicates things for us. A whole lot of young people drinking and doing drugs with weapons, right, waving them around in many instances. And then, of course, whenever trouble happens, people scatter. And unfortunately for us, in a lot of these cases, the witnesses that we have not only left the scene, but they don't want mom and dad to find out where it was that they've been. And so they don't necessarily want to come forward and give that information. To complicate matters on this, the organizers of that party, actually, they had camera equipment set up, but at a certain point when the shooting happened, they took the camera equipment, the computers that had captured a lot of this evidence, they took it with them when they fled the scene, and it took some doing. My detectives had to track those people down, execute warrants, get that camera equipment back, and that's where we were able to get videos of the party itself, along with right around the time of the shooting. And it was a painstaking approach that they took to getting people identified just based upon the limited information that we had. Sí, en este caso, lo que hace las cosas complicadas para nosotros es que muchos de nuestros testigos son gentes jóvenes, son jovencitos que obviamente huyen de la escena ya cuando pasan los balazos y obviamente para nosotros no quieren que muchas veces que los padres sepan dónde estaban, entonces no nos hablan para darnos la información. También en este caso los que organizaron el evento ilegalmente Ellos tenían cámaras y computadoras que capturaron el video cuando pasó el incidente, pero ellos ya cuando pasó todo, quitaron el equipo, quitaron las computadoras, las cámaras, quitaron todo, se lo llevaron. Mis oficiales, mis detectives tuvieron que encontrar a esas personas, buscarlas, ejecutar órdenes de cateo y ya juntarnos con la evidencia. Después de eso lograron ver el video y por mucho trabajo de ellos, sí logramos identificar este sospechoso, pero otros en el caso.
Did he appear to be targeting somebody or just shooting at them?
I think he was mad about having been, he'd been, my understanding is he got smacked around a bit during the fight. He got the worst end of it during the fight and then was mad that he got kicked out. You add to that he's, intoxicated. He's mad about having lost a fight. He's mad about having gotten kicked out. He's armed. He's intoxicated. And that's just a recipe for disaster. And so, yeah, I don't believe that he knew. He just shot randomly at the building. But, when you're shooting at a building that you know is full of people, you were just there 2 seconds ago, what do you think is going to happen, right? So I think he absolutely knew that he was most likely going to take somebody's life.
With so many people being,
Sir?
What is my job?
Oh, sorry. Okay. My apologies. No, en este caso, sé que el joven para nosotros sí, él sabía que le iba a pegar a alguien. Desafortunadamente, pues no pensamos que él supo que Desiree iba a ser baleada, solamente que este sospechoso había tenido, sí lo golpearon dentro del edificio, lo aventaron de la fiesta, entonces ya estaba enojado por eso, estaba intoxicado, sí estaba armado y pues para mí, tirando hacia un edificio con una ametralladora, naturalmente alguien va a ser baleado en esa situación. Entonces, aunque él no podemos probar que supo que iba a matar a Desiree, sí es posible que él ya sabía que alguien iba a ser baleado a causa de sus acciones.
would he be charged with attempted murder of all of the other people that were in the building?
I mean, it's possible he may face other charges, sure. And we're certainly not ruling that out. So there may be that may be the case that he may face other charges. But again, certainly the other people in that car that also saw witnessed what happened and may not have been as forthcoming as quickly as they should have been with the information, they kept it from us. Texas being a state that we don't have accessory to the fact. So in other words, if you and I are in a car together and one of us commits a crime, everybody in the car can be charged with the same crime. So in other words, the getaway driver gets charged with the same crime as the shooter. And in this case, that may be exactly what happens.
Do you know exactly how many people were in the car? I know you said multiple.
I believe it was at least 5 people in the car. And it's a small car. It's like a little Audi sports car,
Including the shooter.
including the shooter himself. Yes, they were piled in there.
You mentioned that there were cameras at this location. It sounds like these people were kicked out. So were there bouncers? It sounds very organized.
So they had security, right? They had bouncers. But in instances like this, the security is not actually legit security. It's just they basically pick, yeah, you're 6'5", come on, you got a job tonight. And so obviously there's no licensing, there's no training, there's no nothing. You just got a big guy that's his job to physically throw people out. It's exactly what happened. But in this instance,